Welcome to Massive Open Online course. For today's lecture, we are going to discuss about the Finance Commission under the broad topic of public finance in India. The Finance Commission is mentioned in Article 280 of the Indian Constitution and also under Article 281 of the Indian Constitution. Today, we are going to discuss about Finance Commission mentioned under these two articles of the Indian Constitution. That is the 15th Finance Commission, which presented its recommendations to the Prime Minister of India. We are going to today deal about the Finance Commission under the following headings. A small introduction, then we move into the composition, powers, duties under Article 280, and then we are going to talk about 281, its interpretation, appraisal, then we see the challenges, and then we check for ourselves. A small historical background before we move into the introductory part. Balancing powers and resources between governments in a federal nation, between the central government and the state government, is a very important and a crucial one. How do each government exercise its power, implement its plan, satisfy the desires of the people who elected them? This is a competition between the central government and the state government in almost all federal nations, or nations that follow the principle of federalism. The Constituent Assembly hence adopted weightage, backing by the Constitution of India, which will enhance the power and even the status of this commission, which actually plans how the resources of this nation could be divided between governments for the welfare of the people. Every democratic nation of the world talks about welfare state policy. Welfare measures are distributed between the central and the state governments. The Constituent Assembly hence not only adopted Finance Commission in Article 280 so that it will find a constitutional place among the people of India. The main important role of the Finance Commission is to reduce the vertical as well as horizontal federal fiscal imbalances. B.R. Ambedkar has the credit of including Finance Commission in the Constitution of India. He can be solely responsible for giving a commission a constitutional status to decide on the finances of this great nation called India. The basic draft of the provisions of the Finance Commission of India was made as early as 1920s, even before the Constituent Assembly was formed. That shows the importance of Finance Commission in India. The first Finance Commission came into existence on the 22nd November 1951. The first chairman was Satish Chandran Yogi. The headquarters of the Finance Commission is always in New Delhi, the capital of India. Mr. Nand Kishore Singh is the current chairman of the 15th Finance Commission. The President of India constitutes every 5 years a Finance Commission. The Finance Commission, according to Article 280, has one chairman and 4 members. The Parliament by law prescribe the qualifications according to Article 280 of the Indian Constitution. The article also prescribes the manner in which the selection of these members to the Finance Commission will be done by the Parliament of India. Under 80 Clause 1, the Parliament has passed the Finance Miscellaneous Provision Act 1951. Based on the above Act, the qualifications prescribed by the Parliament are: the chairman will be a person having experience in public affairs. Members should have been or qualified to be a judge of a high court. The members should have special knowledge of finance and accounts of the government in India. Experience in financial matters and administration would be an added advantage. Special knowledge in terms of economy or economics, both macro and micro, would be always preferable. The term of the members of the Finance Commission is usually according to the order that is signed by the President of India. Normally, the term is for 5 years, but which is always extendable by the President. All these members are eligible for reappointment as members of the Finance Commission. The powers of these members of the Finance Commission is equal to that of a civil court, which means the members of the Finance Commission can summon anyone in India so that they could converse or inquire. They can enforce attendance or witness of anybody in India. They have the power to request any public record, and any document that is needed by the Finance Commission has to be produced to them. That makes the Finance Commission very, very powerful, that of a court. What are the distinctive features of the Finance Commission? The main feature would be to redress the vertical imbalances between the taxation powers and the expenditure responsibilities. Equalization of all public services across the state would be another important feature of the Finance Commission. The Finance Commission implements, or the recommendations of the Finance Commission are implemented by the Government of India through the President of India. Recommendations are made by the Finance Commission, which is only advisory, and it is not binding upon the government and need not be implemented. Recommendations are usually in the distribution of union taxes and duties, including grants and aid. These are usually implemented by an order of the President, though all these recommendations are advisory in nature. Recommendations in respect of sharing of profits, debt relief, mode of assistance, etc., are also implemented by executive orders. The main duties of the Finance Commission, as I told you, would be to make recommendations to the President of India. What are the categories of recommendations that the Finance Commission makes to the President of India as part of its duty? The first one is devolution of taxes, which means they decide about or recommend about the distribution between the union and the states of the net proceeds of taxes. The second one is with regarding to the grants in aid. They recommend about the principles that should govern the grants in aid of the revenues of states out of the Consolidated Fund of India. And the third recommendation with regarding to how to augment resources, the measures needed to raise the Consolidated Fund of the state to supplement the resources of the panchayats or the municipalities in every state based on the 73rd and the 74th amendments. They also make recommendations to the President of India as part of the duty with regarding to determination of taxes, duties, tolls and fees to be assigned or appropriated by the municipalities. It also deals with a grant in aid to municipalities from the Consolidated Fund of the state also, and any other matter referred by the President in the interest of sound finance, they too make recommendations. The scope of the Finance Commission with regarding to recommendations. They make recommendations to the President with regarding to, as mentioned, the distribution of the net proceeds of taxes between the Union and the states. They also define the financial relations between the Union and the states, which is very, very, very important because most of the taxes are raised by the states and given to the central government or the Union government. It also deals with the devolution of unplanned revenue resources. We'll now move into the functions of the Finance Commission. The main functions are how to distribute the net proceeds of taxes between the center and the different states of India. The criteria for distribution or the basis on which respective contributions of states to taxes. They also determine the factors that govern the grants in aid. Another important function of the Finance Commission is to fix the amount of aid to be given to each state depending upon their demand or necessity. They also deal with the measures that are needed to augment the fund of a state to supplement the resources of panchayat and their municipalities, which have come into existence according to the 73rd and the 74th Amendment in India. Some of the important recommendations which have been playing very, very vital role in the economy of India, or how the state governments have been able to develop their respective states. Here are the highlights of some of the important recommendations by various finance commissions. We are in the 15th Finance Commission, but just to say a few. The shares of the states in the net proceeds of the shareable central taxes was 32%, and the 14th Commission raised it to 42%. The share of the net proceeds in 1951 was only 10%. Fiscal deficit to be progressively reduced to 3% and ultimately to be eliminated. A very important recommendation. Another important recommendation that we all know would be the central and state government should conclude grand bargain to implement a model GST Act which is in place. Article 281. The President shall present the recommendations made by the Finance Commission to each House of the Parliament as to action taken thereonto. That's what Article 281 says. How do we understand Article 281 and interpret? Distribution of revenue indicate towards centralization. Center's resources are vast. States' resources are meager. But the responsibilities of every state government are manifold and huge. State governments are always dependent on the central government for funds. State governments are primarily responsible for the well-being of the citizens of their state. In this context of Article 280 and 281, which established the Finance Commission and recommendations respectively, how do we understand the impact of Finance Commission and its effectiveness since independence, when we have done almost 15 Finance Commissions? In the analysis, we will have to accept there has been violations against the principles of federalism or federation in India. We are expecting that the historical background should be understood very, very clearly. It is always justified for the unity of India because of the economic, political, social, cultural situation in India. We always boast of diversity in India, but we also claim unity in diversity. And the unity of India has to be achieved at the economic front, political front, social front and the cultural front. But the political, social and the cultural front unity would depend on the economic distribution or the economic justification in terms of distribution of taxes. We have also seen the growth of Planning Commission, or now what we call it as Niti Aayog, which also deals with the allocation of funds. So the role of Finance Commission has not been very effective because Niti Aayog has superimposed itself on the Finance Commission. When we compare the Finance Commission with Niti Aayog, we see 70% of the finance are decided by the Niti Aayog, whereas only 30% of the funds are decided by the Finance Commission. Niti Aayog, though is not a constitutional body, has become too powerful, a political body which is too powerful than the constitutional body which is called the Finance Commission. So we expect the role of Finance Commission to be more in the future, superseding the role of Niti Aayog. The reforms of the 1990s have brought about a lot of economic changes in the India. We see now the Finance Commission being headed by reputed economists and administrators who have experience in finance, which is a very, very, very good sign in terms of Finance Commission and the members who are brought in to the Finance Commission. The role of reputed economists have been appreciated by the people at large. Since 2015, the Planning Commission was replaced by Niti Aayog. The 12th Finance Commission had suggested to the government that it could alternate between an economist and a political figure, which is also a very good sign. So Finance Commission no longer need to be headed by a political figure, but would always be headed by a financial expert. The transfer of resources between the center and the states. Now the distribution of tax proceeds have changed a lot from 10% in 1950 to a huge sum of 42%, which is a record figure in terms of recommendations according to the 14th Finance Commission. The share that makes previous allocations looked very, very conservative, and now it sits well with the spirit of cooperative federalism. The distribution, which has gone up to 42%, is a sign that India has moved more into a successful federalism, what we call it as cooperative federalism. Lending equations have also changed. The 12th Finance Commission, instead of center borrowing and then lending it to the states, the state governments are given permission or allowed to borrow funds directly from external sources, which is a very, very drastic change in the governance of India. Debt obligation, hence, of the states to the center has come down very, very drastically. Grants that were recommended by the Commission are, however, conditional, but it is also criticized. What are the challenges that we face with regarding to Finance Commission? The framers of the Constitution had a very clear constitutional position for the Finance Commission, and they knew the functions, the roles, the duties and responsibilities. But we also see the growth of Niti Aayog, which have to an extent reduced the role of Finance Commission, which needs to be addressed, a very important challenge. Another important challenge is the vertical imbalance between the taxation powers and the expenditure, and the responsibilities between the central government and the state governments. The horizontal imbalance or the inequality between the states that were at the different stages of development is a very important challenge with regarding to allocation of resources. Ensuring inclusiveness, which is a key mandate of the Finance Commission, is a great challenge. Collections after the rollout of GST and the review of distribution of funds between the states is an important challenge. Challenge is also now due to the share of next tax proceeds between the central government and the state government is almost equal. That is the rising bar or the higher transfer, 42% of resources, a bigger impact on the federal government. Constitutional amendment is needed to fix a ceiling on the distribution of next tax proceeds among the states. Share of devolution, the center to increase capital expenditure to revive economic growth is a challenge. Target to lower revenue deficit is another important challenge. So they have to create more capital assets and increase growth. Weightage to population, allocation of funds, demographic performance is also an important challenge. Separate mechanism for funding defense and internal security is a huge challenge of how much to allocate. India should also aspire to spend 2.5% of GDP on health care. As concluding remarks, the role of Finance Commission should not be subordinated by Niti Aayog. Anomaly corrected by the Union Cabinet through institutionalized Niti Aayog should also be checked. In 1950, Planning Commission appointed transfer of monies, which Nehru did. Now, the Finance Commission is appointed by the President since 1951. So, the Finance Commission's power should be enhanced. The Commission should also become more technical in its approach and logical in procedure. Appointments should not be on the grounds of distribution of patronages, but should be based on the capacity of the individual and the potential to contribute to the economic growth of the nation. So, just to check yourself before we wind up, who appoints the Finance Commission? What is the status of Finance Commission? Highlight the roles and responsibilities of Finance Commission. Discuss the important recommendations of the Finance Commission. Some books for references to be noted: a book by Constitutional Law of India by J.N. Pandey, or Indian Constitutional Law by Subba Rao, or Constitutional Government in India by M.E. Piley could give you more insight into the Finance Commission and its important role in the development of economy of India. This is just a picture to show how Finance Commission receives, spends money, and what each state receives. So, you have the 15th current commission allocating funds for different state governments under different headings. Thank you very much.